Disability News Japan, the podcast all about disability in Japan. I am Michael Gillen Peckett, and this was recorded on the 26th of August 2014 in Suita, Osaka. This is from the Yomiuri Shimbun on August 23rd, 2014, and was repeated in Japan News on August the 24th, 2014. It is help for elderly disabled recidivists crucial for rehabilitation into society. Public prosecutors are working to rehabilitate elderly people and people with intellectual disabilities who repeat relatively minor crimes such as shoplifting and skipping out on restaurant bills to help them rejoin society. In cooperation with welfare experts, prosecutors are trying to secure places at welfare facilities for such people, as well as seeking to get their indictments suspended or receive suspended sentences in court. Preventing repeat offences is important to protect the public safety. It is understandable that prosecutors are exploring ways to achieve this in keeping with suspects and defendants' circumstances instead of just sending them to prison, thereby encouraging them to regain their footing in society. Since January last year, the Tokyo District Public Prosecutor's Office has recruited social welfare workers as part-time employees to help prosecutors with specific assistant measures. For example, an elderly man arrested on suspicion of shoplifting was placed in a nursing home after a suspended indictment as he was suspected of suffering from dementia. More than 350 people have received welfare assistance and medical treatment in the past 1.5 years without serving prison terms. In Nagasaki, Otsu, and elsewhere, panels comprising psychiatrists and other experts investigate the degree of disability in each defendant and compile reports that district public prosecutors can refer to when they seek penalties. Sendai and 19 other district public prosecutors' offices cooperate with local probation officers and help probation officers find places for suspects to live after they are released. Since such endeavours are an attempt to take advantage of welfare networks and expertise. No end to repeat offences. The driving force behind these efforts is seemingly the endless number of repeat offences committed by the elderly and mentally disabled. According to the Justice Ministry White Paper on Crime, the number of elderly persons serving prison terms have continually increased, with a figure for 2012 more than 5 times that seen 20 years before. More than 70% of prisoners were repeat offenders. A survey of inmates suspected to have mental disability shows that they served 3.8 prison terms on average, and some of them had been in prison more than 5 times. It is hard to say that serving time in prison has led to rehabilitation in such cases. If they have no place to live and work, no prospects for their lives after completing their jail terms, released prisoners will repeat crimes and end up being jailed again. Severe punishments must be imposed for heinous crimes, but depending on the case, it would be an effective public safety measure to treat elderly offenders or those with intellectual disabilities from a welfare standpoint. Welfare assistance for repeat offenders will have the additional benefit of preventing overcrowding of prisons and reducing the cost of operating them. However, much remains to be done to sufficiently implement welfare assistance. The Justice Ministry and prosecutors' officers must cooperate with the Health, Labour and Welfare Ministry and local governments to increase the number of welfare facilities that can accept repeat offenders. The prosecutors must also examine the effects of welfare assistance to verify that recipients can be rehabilitated and that such steps deter repeat offences. So that's the Yomiuri of the 23rd of August, and as the Japan News from the 24th. This story interests me because it is quite interesting. Japan, I think, it has a reputation, at least, for having a rather backward view on mental health. For example, I had childhood epilepsy, and epilepsy in Japan is treated as almost a psychiatric disorder, rather than the way it's treated, at least in Britain, is as a neurological disorder. It has behavioural effects, obviously, but it's not necessarily helpful to treat it that way. So this idea of trying to get people's sentences suspended if they have disabilities is interesting to me. What do you think about it? Part of me still thinks that we shouldn't there's an awful tendency sometimes to expect Japan to be better just because we're living here, and we shouldn't expect too much. But there are countries basically where if you have a mental health problem, you're not culpable for your crimes at all, and they should not actually be go to court really at all. I don't know. I like this though. This is good news. This is a positive story. So I just thought it was worth mentioning. It's also interesting. It was in the Yomiuri. The Yomiuri is for those outside of Japan, it's the right-wing newspaper. Think of it like, well, if you're from Britain, it's the Daily Telegraph, and if you're from America, it's I suppose New York Times. Generally, they're against the very idea of welfare, but this is quite forward-thinking, and I just thought it was worth a mention. So this is Michael Gillen-Peckett from Suita, Osaka, and this was Disability News Japan. Thank you.